Okay. Counting down in 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Marvel fans. It's amazing how much you miss when you're dead.
Poe and Ray are torture buddies.
Did Cap kill 20 or 30 Nazis with a pocket knife?
All this and more in this week's episode of the 6 Months Behind podcast.
Three, two, one.
What is up? This is the 6 Month Behind podcast for the week of 11/19/18. I am Pat.
And I am Sean.
And this week we are Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz because they're two guys almost as old as I am that decided to fight again last night. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm good. I'm actually really good. So
yeah, me too. I just took like a 3-hour nap.
Me too.
if Renee had come in there and woke me up, I think I would have slept through the podcast because I didn't see your text.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was crashed, man.
Hey, man, that's what Sundays are for.
Yeah. So I think I heard it like 6 months ago that Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz were fighting again.
Yeah, and if you have no idea who those people are, they're both famous UFC fighters who retired a while ago and have suddenly decided to get it back into it.
Yeah, and I guess Oscar De La Hoya, through his Golden Boy Promotions, decided to offer them both a bunch of money to launch his MMA side. And when I saw it, I thought, in one of his last few fights, Chuck got brain damage. And that's not the correct word, but he was concussed enough so that every time he got hit, he got knocked out. So his last 2 or 3 fights, he was knocked out in the first round. Yeah. Sure enough, he fights Tito 4 minutes in. He's knocked out in the first round. Tito didn't even hit him that hard.
That's the thing is he's been hit so many times and he's had so many concussions. You could flick him in the nose and he'd have a concussion.
Dude, if you watch his early fights, he had a chin made of steel, man. And I don't remember which fight it was, but he took a beating and he's just never been the same since. It's just, he's got the proverbial glass jaw. You hit him and he goes down.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Like when you go back and look at his old fights and look at what he did last night and then some of the ones right before he retired, it's like night and day.
It is. It just, the brain isn't designed to be repeatedly hit.
You would know.
I do know. I do, actually.
Yeah. How many have you had in your lifetime?
Over 20.
Yeah.
Concussions.
Yeah.
And I'm not like a boxer or a football player. I just, I'm just all the time hitting my head. And long-time listeners may know this. In 95, I had a car wreck. It wasn't that bad, but my head flew back and hit the back of the back window, and it gave me a concussion, a post-concussion syndrome, which lasted, I don't even know, maybe 8 weeks. And dude, ever since then, I just get tapped in the head, get a concussion. Not even that hard sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's been times where you just like bump your head against something, or like a cabinet door or something, and all of a sudden you have a concussion. And that's how concussions work.
Yeah.
The more you have, the more susceptible you are to them. But
yeah. And I've had another car wreck since then when my head hit something, and there have been more serious concussions, and then there's some where there were just little thumps on the head. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so I don't know why Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz decided to get back in the ring, other than the fact that they wanted some money. So I guess it was a good draw, I assume.
I guess. I don't know, man. I guess. How much money you got to have a traumatic brain injury and get back in the ring again? Apparently, it was in the upper 6 figures.
It'd have to be, because I don't know. There are, and I don't know how true this is, but there are people who say that Chuck Liddell has shown symptoms of, that boxing sickness where they kind of start to lose their mind just a little bit.
Dementia or Parkinson's?
Just when you talk to him, he's not always all there. Sometimes he's fine, but then sometimes he'll get a little glassy eyed and maybe he wasn't paying attention to you.
There you go.
But anyway, that happened because why not? I hope the people who paid all that money enjoyed it. Because
speaking of people who paid money, Phil and Tiger played golf over the weekend.
Yeah,
and it was a $20 pay-per-view, and apparently it was sponsored by Bleacher Report, I guess. And they had so much trouble right before the event. Hundreds, thousands of people started trying to buy it right before the event started.
Sure.
And they had so many people trying to buy it that they wound up just giving it away for free, which is fine unless you'd already paid your $20.
Yeah. If I'm one of those people who already paid for it and I find out my neighbor got it for free at the last minute, I'm gonna be mad.
I think they're going to wind up refunding everybody's money, because apparently what they wanted was the data. They wanted to know if that model would sell our pay-per-view, and from the looks of it, it did. So there you
go. Okay. I think you just live stream the thing these days.
Dude, you got to pay for it somehow. I mean, if you're going to give Phil and Tiger $10 million, you got to get $10 million from somewhere.
Dude, that's what ad revenue's for.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And we promise this isn't a sports podcast, but we'll discuss one more item on the agenda. My team played your team in football this week, and your team beat the crap out of my team, and it was ugly, and I hope they fire Gus Malzahn.
They're not going to, because they owe him too much money. I think today his buyout is $39 million.
38, 39, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I emailed my buddy Greg Lane yesterday, or texted him, I should say. And I was like, dude, because you look at Auburn, and I was really perplexed by this. I mean, they have talent. At times, they look like world beaters. At times in that game, they look like world beaters. And at other times, they just suck. And I was like, what is their malfunction? And he said it's a lack of depth, the offensive line, which you and I have talked about, and the play calling, which I don't understand the play calling, because Gus Malzahn's supposed to be this offensive genius. So, but apparently he's going to fire everybody on the staff so he can start over.
Well, see, that's just it. That's my problem. Is he's supposed to be some sort of offensive genius, but he can't put together an O-line to save his life. He can't call plays. He can't manage games. So what's he doing?
Well, the O-line isn't his fault, but everything else you're correct.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive lines, they're just a bunch of young guys, and it's a lack of depth issue, and that always can't be helped. But still, you're right about Auburn when you say that there are times when they look really good and they look like the team that they should look like, and 5 minutes later, they look like they've never played a football game before.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And to me, I mean, like yesterday, they let the second quarter wind down. They got the ball back with 2 minutes on the clock, did nothing with it, and went into halftime having not used a single timeout.
Yeah.
What?
Teams just let the clock run out in the second half.
Yeah, like they were content with that. They went into that game yesterday knowing they were going to lose. They didn't even try, really. They put some points up, but once Alabama got rolling, they rolled over.
I wouldn't say they didn't try, but
I don't know. I'm sure Jarrett Stidham, who's their quarterback, is upset that he left Baylor for this mess. But we'll see. I don't know. Anyway, we're not a football podcast or a sports podcast, believe it or not. So if you want to email us about sports or comic books, you can email us at 6monthsbehind@gmail.com. That's the 6 months behind at gmail.com.
The website is www.6monthsbehind.com. Oh, dude, I'm putting all the covers up, right? And they're there. They're. You just click on the alternate cover tab. They're there. And there's this Venom cover that I sent you a picture of.
Yeah.
And the cover itself in color, full color, sold for $540. The sketch version of it, which I didn't post because I'm like, why am I going to post the cover and the sketch version? Sold for over 1,000.
Yeah.
And if you look at these covers on the website, you'll see the cover, and then below it says what it is. Well, I kept the link up there. So if you ever click on that link, not always, but a lot of times it carries you to the site where that cover is being sold. Okay, so to give you an option to buy that issue, and then it tells you what the last few have sold for. Now, it's not going to give you all the sales data because it wants you to log in, create an account, and all that crap. But you can see like the last 2 or 3 sales, and that cover sold for $1,020, I think. I was like, why? What? Why in God's name? I don't understand. I don't.
Because it was Todd McFarlane.
From 30 years ago.
Yeah. It's a collector's item.
I guess, man. I don't know. And I tried to find how many of those covers were actually made, how many issues went out with that cover on it, and I couldn't find it.
That's also probably something. It was probably limited.
It had to be because the more covers there are, and there were like 7 of that Venom cover. I took out the blank variant, I took out the sketch variant, but the more there are, as you get down to in Marvel letters, they're covered. So it's A, B, C, D, E. By the time you get down to H or I can't imagine there's many being made because you got those purchase requirements coming from Diamond. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at some point, there's no point in doing it. You know, if you get Seth MacFarlane to do you, it's Seth MacFarlane. That's the guy who made Family Guy. If you get Todd McFarlane to do a cover for you, you know, you do a limited 300 issue run, and they sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a special exclusive, and you know, only so many people get it, and you have to order so many. And yeah, dude, I'd make money like that.
Yeah. But we do discuss spoilers on this show, although we haven't yet. And we're going to, though, because we just can't help ourselves. I can't help myself. So here we go.
Right. Yeah. So, and understand we're 6 months behind. So it's not just the comic books that we're talking about this week. It could be a number of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It could be stuff happening right now. Anyway, we're going to start with our Infinity Countdown comics. We have Infinity Countdown Daredevil #1. I feel like we had a lot of like special issues this week. Infinity Countdown Daredevil, the X-Men wedding, the Hunt for Wolverine. You have the Quicksilver No Surrender, the Thor Gates of Valhalla one shot. I don't know. I feel like I read a bunch of 30+ page comic books this week.
Yeah, there was a few, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a bunch, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first couple pages of this comic book are a very brief retelling of Daredevil's origin story. Now, yes, this is a 35-page comic book, but if you're picking this up, if you're reading this, do you really need to know how Daredevil became Daredevil again? I don't think you do. And it's brief. It's, you know, by page, 4 or 5, it's over.
I guess their thinking is that somebody may be buying it because it's an Infinity book and not necessarily know who Daredevil is.
And my thinking is the opposite. If you're buying this Infinity event, of course you know who Daredevil is. And
you probably know who Turk Barrett is.
Yeah, maybe. So we catch up with Matt in the modern day. He's going to court, as he does, because he's a lawyer. And he runs into Turk Barrett, who, if you don't know who Turk Barrett is, excuse me, he's a low-level street thug that Daredevil beats the crap out of for information on a regular basis. But here's Turk Barrett wearing a really nice suit and a fur coat and a pimp cane, and something weird's going on. Now, as we already knew because we've seen this before, Turk Barrett is in some manner in possession of the Mind Stone, meaning he can read people's minds. Turk Barrett has been using this to gamble and make a lot of money because if you could read everybody's mind at the table, well, you can win a lot of money gambling.
That's what I do.
Yeah. And he, as we see this play out, Turk Barrett intends to fill the void that the Kingpin left when he went to become mayor. So, yeah, it's not now. Antivirus software, go away. Yeah, it's interesting at best. What happens is, Daredevil sees, or Matt Murdock sees this happen, throws on the Daredevil outfit, goes to the bar where all the thugs hang out at, get some information out of people, find out where he's hanging out at. They have an altercation, and he recounts the story to Daredevil about how he came to be in possession of the Mind Stone. Apparently he was running some sort of Uber scam, which reading this, I'm like, this is going to give people ideas. Maybe this wasn't the best thing to do, but okay. And apparently some ninjas were fighting some Skrulls in the streets of New York and had the stone. He comes into possession of it, and now he's going to be the new crime boss of New York. And he's got Bullseye to help him.
Yeah, it's all right.
It's okay, yeah.
There's a opening page, and this becomes more important as time goes on.
Yeah.
As we go back into days of Marvel past, during the Secret Wars miniseries, version 3, not 1 and 2 from the 80s, but 3, the universe was destroyed and then recreated. When it was recreated, apparently all the gems don't function as they're supposed to. You may notice that some of the colors have changed, which is why there's a page explaining them in every Affinity book. And there are problems with them, like Turk Barrett winding up with one. Mm-hmm. And this is something to keep in mind as this story continues to evolve. So, by the way, Turk Barrett is like one of the funniest people in the Netflix shows because he gets beat up in every series.
Oh yeah,
like he appears in every one of them, and whoever Jones and Daredevil, they beat him up. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's like his superpower is being beaten up for information by superheroes.
Yeah, I think in The Punisher, like Frank wanted to buy guns, and Turk, so he winds up buying the guns for him. It's pretty funny. Next we have Avengers and Avengers #2 this week by Jason Aaron.
I love this cover.
This is a good cover. It's a celestial with his palm out over our new cast for Avengers. Last week we got introduced to most of them. This week we have a narrator, as we did with the previous run. We have a narrator narrating the issue, and we don't learn who it is until the last page, but we see the various heroes that we've been introduced to so far: Ghost Rider, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, the Big Three, and they're all fighting the Celestials. And I just closed my app. There you go. I didn't know if you pinched it just right. It was close. Then we cut to Jennifer Walters confronting one of the Celestials. She's not following her better judgment and running. Instead, she just stands there and becomes the incarnation of the Hulk that we were introduced to in the her former series, which ended with issue 12 a few months ago.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, Jason Aaron does some cool stuff with her, besides her getting busy with Thor. He does some stuff with her powers and how she acts, and it's pretty cool. It really is. So Iron Man and Thor and Cap are fighting the One. Not a success. When one of the Celestials begins communicating with She-Hulk. We'll call her She-Hulk from now on. She begins communicating with her, and she's the Celestial is apparently using some form of telepathy. And then someone teleports her to where Robbie Reyes, as the Ghost Rider, is, which of course leads to them having a fight. Captain Marvel shows up with the Avengers. If your thought is, wait, the last time Captain Marvel and Tony were in the same place, she killed him, you would be correct.
Yeah, there's a little tension there.
There's a little tension there, but it's not addressed for a few issues. So then she takes them and teleports them to the sun. The problem is more of them show up, and eventually we discover that they're being brought here by none other than Loki,
who's narrating the whole comic book.
Yes.
And if you're clever, you can figure that out within the first page, because Marvel does this thing where if someone's narrating it, they'll use certain color schemes for the thought bubbles. Yes. And it's obviously Loki's colors of green and white.
Yep.
And also, you're relaunching the Avengers. Loki was key to the formation of the Avengers. So
if you're doing the Avengers, you got to have Loki. That seems to be their thinking.
Yeah. It was a good issue.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. Moving on to our X-Men comic books, we have X-Men: The Wedding Special #1. I have a problem with this comic book. I have a couple problems with it. Okay. The first is the wedding doesn't actually happen in this comic book.
No. It's happening in X-Men Gold #30.
Right, which you learn if you read this comic book all the way to the end. And also, it's another plus-size issue, that's not a problem. But if I'm standing in a comic book store looking at new comic books and I see Kitty and Colossus on the front of a cover of X-Men, and it says The Wedding Special, and there's a big ring at the bottom, and it says a story by Chris Claremont, I go, oh, they're getting married, and I buy this thinking this is their wedding, and it's not. It's the lead up to the wedding.
Yep.
It's actually 3 separate stories. One by Chris Claremont, one by Mark Guggenheim, and one by Kelly Thompson. Let me tell you something. This first story, even though it was written by Chris Claremont, doesn't make any sense.
There's a reason Chris Claremont isn't writing the X-Men anymore.
He wrote this story.
I know, but I mean, the series in long form.
Yeah, but that's what editors are for.
I understand.
So we begin with Kitty having a nightmare about being in the giant bullet again. If you don't know what that's about, go back and read, what was it, Astonishing X-Men?
Yes.
Yeah, Astonishing X-Men. And she's kind of remembering her life, and it's basically an excuse to give a brief history of Kitty Pryde. And in this version, because this can't possibly be the Kitty Pryde that we know, because it doesn't make any sense, she left the X-Men, became a doctor, became a goth, and is now a bartender at Bells of Hell Bar. And she's pouring drinks, she's serving drinks, she's a little worried about being married. That also doesn't make sense, because if she's not with the X-Men, obviously her and Peter aren't getting together, but apparently that's the case here. Then Kurt shows up, helps her bartend, and convinces her everything's going to be fine. The ghosts of all these other men in her life show up and convince her it's going to be fine, and she should get married. None of this makes any sense. That's not what Kitty's doing right now. That's not what happened to her. Like, she didn't go and become a doctor and quit the X-Men. She's currently the leader of the X-Men. She doesn't work at a bar. She also doesn't wear this much black leather and metal studding. Dude, it doesn't make any sense. And I understand it's Chris Claremont, but maybe an editor could have clued him in.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. Can we have a sidebar?
Sure.
Yep, go ahead. No, go ahead. I forgot there were more
Okay.
stories. Because I'm gonna be honest
Yeah,
with you, I didn't read them. I glanced and said, "Yeah, I don't care," and didn't read them.
Yeah, the second story is what happened in the lead up to Colossus being kidnapped by a Sentinel when they went for his bachelor party. They actually go to Hotel Inferno, which is entertaining. And the second story is Kitty's bachelorette party, and she has some kind of run in with Callisto. Anyway, they go to Stripperoki, which is exactly what it sounds like. And yeah. Anyway, if you wanted to see the actual wedding, it's in X-Men number 30, which you will have to buy somewhere else.
Yeah. As a sidebar, I understand that America doesn't have the best internet and infrastructure in the world. But why in God's name does our internet have to slow down to a crawl every time it rains hard?
Oh, dude, I don't know. It's raining outside right now, and I imagine our internet's being bad.
Oh, it's raining here, and I just checked mine, and it is.
Yeah, and see, I work in a communication center, and every time it rains, stuff just goes off for no reason. Stuff just stops working for no reason. And it's not even like storming, like
No.
It's just drizzling.
Right. It's not like, it's a torrential rain outside. It's of what it normally is. Dude. Anyway, we'll continue. If it sounds like every now and then, we're just we don't know what the other one's saying. Well, it's because we don't. X-Men Red number 4. This continues the attack by Cassandra Nova upon the X-Men. In this case, she has, I want to say captured, she has infected Storm's mind with nanobots, and she's attacking the X-Men Red team, who are still flying the giant Sentinel that they've possessed. And they managed to lose her, except they're in Wakanda, so Jean Grey goes off to fight. Grey. This is old Jean Grey as opposed to young Jean Grey. So anywho, finally they get her subdued between who was the third person? It was T'Challa and Jean Grey and somebody else. Oh, the new mutant they have that can communicate with technology. So all three of them go inside Roro's brain and bring the nanobots out. And with the captured nanobots, they're going to try and track them back to Cassandra Nova. They don't know it's Cassandra Nova, but it is. And along the way, they've made these special costumes that prevent them from being infected by the nanobots, except Gabby doesn't like Namor in a costume because, it hides his marvelous abs. That was more than I needed to know. And
it was more of a joke. It wasn't a like, oh, I'm bummed I can't see Namor's abs.
Yeah, okay. Sure. A 13-year-old girl hitting on him, or how old's Gabby? Isn't she 13?
She's not hitting on him. Did you read it?
I'm reading it right now.
Dude, she's not hitting on him. She's just cracking jokes that he walks around with no shirt on all the time.
Okay, you and I are interpreting it differently.
Okay.
Anywho, so they set up a base in Atlantis. By the way, just as a teaser for the future, would you set up an underwater base if you had a large group of villains who at any time were trying to kill you? Does that sound like a recipe for disaster?
Well, I think the idea is that Atlantis is not a place they would find them. And also there are plenty of defenses in Atlantis to prevent them from being successful if they did.
Okay. We'll see how that works out for them in the future.
I didn't say it was going to work out for them. I'm saying I understand the logic.
Sure. I would want to be in the blue area on the moon. First off, nobody can find me. Then if they find me, there's actually air there. So, that's where I put my base.
With like a super mopey Nick Fury being all cryptic all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. He's going to be like, Jean, you must see. You must observe. I can't see. I've only got one eye.
Yeah, but he's like chained to one place, so you could walk away from him.
I don't know. He'd bring the whole mood down.
Oh, he definitely would.
Yeah. Then we have another Hunt for Wolverine comic book, Claws of a Killer #1. These aren't going to stop anytime soon, nor is this.
God, no.
Dude, like, we're going to be discussing Hunt for Wolverine for the next 2 years.
People can't see me shaking my head in disgust, so I'll say it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, by the time Wolverine comes back, we'll be sick of him again.
Yeah.
I mean, you could already make the argument that he never really went anywhere because you have old man Logan taking his place. Who's just an older version of the same Logan. Anyway. Somewhere in middle of nowhere, Arizona, in a town with a population of like 300 people, the power goes out in this bar. So they go to check it out, and Wolverine's killing everyone. And apparently that's bad. Lady Deathstrike, Victor Creed, Sabretooth, and Daken get together and decide they're going to go rescue Wolverine because that's what they need to do. A few days later, in this same town, now it reads population 0, everybody's dead, and there's some sort of like government strike team there. They track them Wolverine to this town and find a bunch of zombies. And wasn't this a book about Wolverine?
I don't even know anymore. Much like the X-Men special, wedding special, this is just Marvel grabbing for money.
Yeah, you kill Wolverine for a couple years, then you slap him on a bunch of comic books and you sell comic books.
Which, I mean, in theory, you tell Chris Claremont, hey, Kitty Pryde's getting married, write us something about it. And he writes a story. And in theory, it should be good. You've got Wolverine coming back, so you get some good authors to write stories about Wolverine. But when you're led to believe this is the wedding issue, or these people are actually looking for Wolverine and they're not, and the story isn't really that great, and then you're left with a bitter taste in your mouth. And we didn't even pay for it, so we just had to read it.
Yeah, and if I had to guess, these Hunt for Wolverine comics were not your standard $3.99 price tag.
I'm gonna look soon, but no, I haven't yet.
They're probably at least $4.99.
Next, we have, which is a good book, by the way, a good ongoing series, even if it does end with this issue, All New Wolverine #35. And this is the future story of Laura Kinney and Gabby going after the Doctor Doom that has defeated the heroes of the world. And it opens with Laura Kinney dead, but then we get to an hour ago to determine how she got there. And our valiant heroes are attacking Castle Doom, and they're smashing their way through Doom bots, and then Janet Pym inhabits one of the Doom bots, and there you go. There's actually a funny scene where Laura Kinney tries to lift the hammer, which she can't do.
The hammer of Thor.
Yeah, because she's like, well, I've been getting better and I'm a better person, but apparently I'm not that much better. Yeah. So they keep fighting their way through the castle, going after Doom bots. Eventually they come to the original Victor Von Doom, not a Doom bot, who is very old and being kept alive chemically and mechanically. And his plan, because Laura Kinney is a Wolverine and has mutant healing abilities and will probably live forever, is to inhabit her body, put him in a great deal of pain. So he's like, well, this is a bad idea. And they're communicating. It doesn't say if they're communicating through telepathy or if they're speaking out loud, but there's a couple of pages of it all going very wrong for Victor Von Doom. And when he realizes how bad shape her body is in. He retreats back into his body, which she promptly puts a claw through, which kills Victor Von Doom, and then everyone lives happily ever after. And at that point, all the heroes have escaped, and we got Kate Bishop and the new Captain America and Daredevil and a few others.
That's America Chavez. It took me a minute, but it's America Chavez.
Is that America Chavez?
Yeah.
Okay. Rocket Raccoon's there. I forget who else.
Old Man Miles Morales, apparently, because
is that Old Man Miles Morales?
I mean, he's not old, but he's like in his 40s or something by this point. He'd be older.
Yeah. So then finally Gabby just refuses to let Laura die. And she says, they're going to go find healers or mystical people or somebody to keep her alive. Which I'm like, why does anybody get injured, die in the Marvel Universe? Why don't you go see one of the mutant healers or Doctor Strange or somebody and get healed?
I think they say that in the first issue of this story is that she's consulted everybody and nobody can do anything.
Yeah, but apparently in the last couple of pages here, they suddenly can.
I wonder if this was like a change from the original story when it was pitched. Like she was supposed to die, and then they realized they had a hit on their hands, so they need to keep her alive so they can do old woman Wolverine stories. Which I'm totally down with, but...
Okay, sure. But that carries me back to my original question. Why does anyone ever die in the Marvel Universe?
We could talk about death in comic books for an hour. We could do a whole a podcast about it.
We're fixing to do a podcast about Daredevil. And they've killed him, tortured him. They've done all kinds of things to him, and he always winds up back. It's pretty funny. That could become a running gag among the writers. They see how bad a shape they can leave him in for the next writer.
Yeah. But no, I really enjoyed this 3-issue story. It's the end of All New Wolverine. Laura Kinney will be back in X-23, a new ongoing series with her. But I don't know why they're changing it, because Wolverine technically isn't back yet, so he's not taking the book back over, but you're just going to do X-23. I don't know. I guess the creative team's changing.
I guess. I don't know.
It's part of that whole Marvel Legacy relaunch. So, or relaunching from Marvel Legacy. Anyway, we have Cable number 157. Cable's still fighting this weird nightmare version of himself. He teams up with other Cables from other timelines to do this, to no avail, and barely escapes with his life. It was okay.
Yeah. I understand there's this whole council of Cables, like there's a council of Reed Richards, but there's a story coming soon where Cable's going to fight a younger version of himself. I won't tell you what it is, but and I'm just like, why? I mean, can we not come up with anything original for Cable other than him fighting versions of himself?
Right, which, that's just something Cable does all the time, is run across other versions of himself. And it's a little tired. Yeah. It's like, the only time he took a break from doing that, and even then there were times where he did this, was when he had Hope. And he was raising Hope. Hope being the other Jean Grey lookalike in the Marvel Universe.
Oh, I thought it was a CW TV show.
Oh. No.
Anywho.
That show's terrible.
I've literally never watched it.
Neither have I. I don't need to watch it to know it's terrible.
Spider-Man books this week are Ben Reilly, Scarlet Spider.
Dude, your internet just took a massive dump.
Dude, yours is taking 2 or 3. You just freeze up, and I sit there, and I know in 5 or 10 seconds it'll unfreeze, and I'll catch up with you. So it's happened 2 or 3 times, and when you hear me not talking, you just know, yeah, it's taking a dump. That's why I commented on it earlier.
Yeah, the same was happening with you, but you became a robot for just a second. Okay, but you've recovered. So, but you're like the first couple seconds of talking about Spider-Man, you sounded like you were inside the machine.
Dude, I'm losing you completely. But your screen's freezing up, and I'm not hearing anything. And then you'll start over.
Yeah,
but I just keep rolling with it, and I hope it's going to sound fine.
Yeah. Okay, let's re-intro Scarlet Spider. 3,
Count us in.
3, 2, 1. Yeah, let's call it. It's not happening.
Okay.
I can't do it tomorrow or Wednesday, but
I'll try and do it Tuesday, man. It's
too bad to do this.
Yeah,
it is. It's not going to make for a good podcast.
No, I'm literally having to roll with it every time it happens, and this is just a train wreck.
Well, it's happening more frequently too. It happened once or twice when we started. Now it's every minute, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know if it's your rain or my rain, but when I'm creating a fiasco.
It's both, and I just did a speed test on my phone. I think it's both of us.
Okay, yeah, my speed sucks. All right, we'll come back
too.
We'll come back and try it later.
Sorry, man.
Oh, dude, it's all good, man. I just hoping I don't have to work late Tuesday night.
Yeah,
if I do, we'll work around it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, man.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, bud. Bye.
All right. Bye.